I have been documenting the entire process of writing my book and starting to move into publishing it, and I am very excited to say that we are moving into the publishing phase with a very special event. Before I show you my little mock-up copy of what we have created side by side together through documenting this, I wanted to say a couple things because I know that I don't write conventional stories. I'm a trans and bi and disabled author, and I write characters like that, chronically ill heroes, people who are still figuring themselves out, people who have experienced trauma and they're trying to learn and heal and grow through those things. And I also write love stories that don't just end with the question of will they, won't they. I really like to write stories where we find out what happens if they decide, yes, we will. I think it's so interesting seeing how people connect and the level of love and acceptance that people can give to one another and also to themselves through romance books. And I think that's really cool. So without further ado, I will introduce you to Shadow King Omega, a new LGBTQ plus werewolf shifter romance book. I am super excited about it, and I thought of a way that we could all be involved in its launch together. So I'm sure you have noticed by the title, I wanted to do a Kickstarter for this launch, and that is for multiple different reasons that might not be obvious, but that are extremely important to me. So why Kickstarter? Primarily because of what it means to have your support. Some people might know me if you are coming to watch this from Kickstarter because you may have helped me fund this entire graphic novel, which is Resonance. They're my space gaze. And what's cool about that is that now there is documented proof of just how many people supported this project to bring it to life. But what that means is that there were that many people who took a chance on this indie story and these characters who are my space gaze. They're like trans and bi and they have their own ups and downs and struggles, and I think that that also shows that there are people who accept people like me and like my characters. So it's very special to me to have this, even one copy, just to be like, wow, like we really did that together. And I think that through doing that again, I would love to put everyone's names in the acknowledgements of this book, and I think that is my number one why I would like to do this, just for the fact that people do care. Like, it is just another thing to show not just me but everyone who also can relate to my characters, even if you're not LGBTQ plus and you just can relate to maybe how Ari has a hard time accepting himself as a chronically ill person that's trying to step into a leadership role, or Marcus, who is struggling to come to terms with different parts of himself when he has faced trauma at the hands of someone and he shares an identity with that type of person, and it's hard for him to accept that part of himself. So I think that that's really special, and I also just really like to spoil you. So this Kickstarter is coming July 1st, so if you're watching this before that in 2026, please make sure to save it on Kickstarter. Like, you go to the project campaign link right here, it's also in the description, and you press save, like, to be notified when the project goes live, because sometimes the internet makes things hard for us to keep in contact with each other, and I've had people come back and be like, oh no, I missed this, and this is only going to happen for 30 days. So we have to see if we can make this happen within 30 days. If you have not been following along this whole time on YouTube that I've been documenting about Shadow King Omega's birth, because it is our book baby, that's okay. Let me catch you up really quickly. It is the first book in a deeply passionate romance between two werewolves who are friends. Basically, they both have had feelings for each other for a long time, like their whole lives, but through different circumstances, they kind of misunderstood the signals from one another. We like to call them our clueless men. Clueless men in love. Marcus is a global diplomat for werewolves. That's him right here. And Ari is the Shadow King in the title because Marcus sneaks Ari into this gladiator-like competition that all the global pack leaders compete in every year to see who is the strongest alpha. But these two are like, hey, you do not have to be an alpha to be a strong werewolf. So Ari is 100% Omega, kicks everybody's asses, then he disappears because he does not want the title of King Alpha. He just wants to make a point and create further acceptance and move everyone forward because he's like, enough already. But it doesn't quite turn out how they planned. People still seem to think that the default is to have an alpha as a leader. They basically give Ari this urban legend status as being the Shadow King because he disappears. But at the end of that competition, Marcus tries and absolutely obliterates his confession to Ari, does not properly confess because they have another long kept secret. Ari accidentally bit Marcus on the neck, but he did not mean to give him a soul bond that is like basically like a sacred mate bond between werewolves. So it only half formed. They panicked, and this was years ago when they were teenagers, and they haven't told anyone about it and haven't really fully resolved that between each other because Ari feels really guilty and it's causing confusion between them. They both just basically really want each other to be happy, but they are not happy because they're not together. So this book is about them trying to come together, but then like what happens after that, because they've known each other since they were literal babies, and that's really confusing to try to navigate. But they just, regardless of what they are to each other, who they are to each other, want the best for each other. They're so emotionally intimate, and I think it's very fun seeing them ramp up in their romantic and sexual intimacy through this book. So it is spicy. There is like first times because they both were like not really interested in anyone else. They haven't done a lot of things sexually or romantically in a relationship, so that's kind of exciting. They're both in their late 20s. Marcus also has PTSD and talks about that. Ari also has a chronic illness where his heats cause him a lot of pain, so he's kind of worried about having a long-term partner or mate and being like, hey, sorry, this might be disappointing. We don't get to have fun, spicy heat every month. It's not a fun time. So there's hurt, comfort, and it's a slow burn, but it like rises into a very high heat. There's also all of these spicy werewolf stuff like marking and nodding, and they're pretty interesting in their dynamic together. So there's kind of like a sub-dom type of thing going on, but in a very sweet way. Between best friends, they just have very candid conversations and try to figure these things out together. So it's very lighthearted, very affectionate. So if that sounds interesting to you, the Kickstarter is happening in July. And through this Kickstarter, I not only wanted to launch this book, but I wanted to create a special edition hardcover. So here are some of my mock-ups for that. I did all of the artwork myself, so it is human made. You can watch like a replay of when I did it live on my Twitch channel. On the inside of my books, I usually like to have illustrations within the book itself. So everyone's copies, even the ebook, will have 10 plus illustrations inside of the book. But on top of that, for the special edition, it's going to be a hardcover, and I'll just use this as an example, but this is not hardcover. The edges are going to be sprayed on all three sides of the papers with a design that carries over from the front cover. And then there's going to be end papers. If we take a look at this book, that is what this first heavier cardstock paper is. So in the front and back of the hardcover, there will be other illustrations. One of them is a map that I did in collaboration with one of you, my friend and long-term supporter, Lucas Kazmierski. He's so amazing. He's a very kind person, generous person, and he loves drawing maps, and I don't know, I have not drawn a map. So he did the whole sketch, and I am coloring it and everything. So that is a lot of fun. But yes, all of the artwork is very much human-made. In fact, I even format the inside of my books. Shadow King Omega is going to be different than this book that I'm holding because I'm going to put chapter header, like a little illustration on here. I'm very excited. Most of that is already complete, so you don't have to worry about that if you're like, is the book even done type of thing. It's currently with my editor. I'm editing it, and it's going to be with beta readers this week that I'm filming this. So by the time you watch it, it has made a lot of progress and it is already set to launch October 6th. and that is my own launch that I'm doing myself as an indie author. But I just thought that it would be very fun to include you and give you early access. All of the tiers for the Kickstarter are going to include the ebook of this book, the final edition, and that's going to be in August because the book will be done, and that's when we'll get funding for the Kickstarter, hopefully, if it goes through. So everyone will be able to read it early. If you have a standard version of the paperback or hardcover, I'm going to be sending those out as soon as I can, so probably early September, like a month early. And then we're gonna do our best to get the hardcover out on time for the launch, the special edition, but I don't really know if that's possible. Sometimes contacting manufacturers, having to ship it overseas, that's the only way to do this in a cost-effective way for you without me having to charge you like $1 million. Not literally, and for me. So that is the plan. I did want to give a quick note about the spicy scenes in my book in case you have not read any of my other books, because I think that my spicy scenes are a little bit different than what some people might anticipate. I treat those scenes with a very queer-informed, trauma-informed lens that I just live with. These scenes have a greater purpose for character development as well, and usually helps each character grow in some way and connect deeper. So there's a lot of like emotional intimacy, and one of those things that I think is important for me to highlight is that when I had read Omegaverse books, it was the closest I had ever seen to trans masculine representation at that time. So I do feel like especially in terms of pregnancy and birth, and Ari does not get pregnant in this, but he does want to. And a lot of people who are trans, like me, trans masculine, they still have a uterus. Some of them still carry their own children. Other people are really not into that. So it really depends on the person. But I feel like a lot of the representation that I have seen, like I don't really see that represented yet. And I was like, okay, well, maybe this is a way to give this aspect, because we have a lot of differing experiences. And I also really feel that I see trans people as having the bravery to love themselves despite society really not accepting us in many ways still. And I really wanted to show that through Ari's confidence in his trans identity and in his different aspects of his body. And like that being said, he still has difficulties accepting his chronic illness, which I think that I can really relate to as someone with a chronic illness or multiple. And he has to face his fears of burdening Marcus, basically, quote unquote, with how his chronic illness affects him, and has to come to terms with like indulging in Marcus's affection, because that's really what Marcus wants. Then we have Marcus. He is a gender fluid werewolf, so he's not gender fluid in terms of like feeling like he's a man or woman or non-binary. Like he feels very much like a man, but his wolf form can kind of fluctuate between omega, alpha, and beta. He's really struggling to accept his alpha side after experiencing trauma when he was very, very young. So it's kind of just ingrained in him to be afraid of alphas, and that means he's kind of afraid of himself and that side of himself. So Ari really helps him open up and accept all parts of himself throughout the book, and kind of reminds me of how, like, allegorically, a lot of trans guys have felt the same way. We have to come up with a new way to approach masculinity after experiencing harm from men, a lot of us. I thought that was very interesting to explore. I had a lot of fun with these two, and this is only book one in their story. What is extra special about that is that the full My Shy Alpha trilogy that I have written features Ari's parents. So this is like in the same universe, it's a spin-off. You don't need to read the original trilogy, but it's really cute because I feel like you can see the resemblance. These are Ari's parents, and we'll put him side by side with Ari, and I just think it's so cute. I had so much fun writing Ari's character, like knowing his whole family backstory basically, and I think that it made it special to see those characters again in this book, and they have like a very, very small role, but you can see how they have shaped him, and that like even though their family still has things to work through and work on like individually, They have grown a lot and it's so special. Like I really love it. So I had tons of fun. I really hope you have fun reading it. If it has not passed July when you're watching this video, please feel free to check out the Kickstarter, see if anything interests you. I also just have regular pre-orders up for the ebook so far, and I will have the paperback and hardcover editions ready for pre-order in August of 2026. Thank you so much for being a part of creating this book, baby. Shadow King Omega is coming out October 6th. 2026. But if you would like to be part of the final step in getting it published, it would mean so much to me if you did support the Kickstarter, and I cannot wait to spoil you with everything as my thanks. So I hope that you're having a great day or night wherever you are, and I will see you again next week. Goodbye.